Hi, I am Santiago Rodriguez. I'm the CEO of Minteo, and I'm excited to be here on this podcast today. And welcome to the podcast.
Santiago, thanks for coming. Very excited about having you on our first episode of the KII podcast. We have a lot of good, interesting information to go over today. I'm very excited to have everybody learn about Minteo and everything that we're doing together, and just kind of get everybody informed on what's going on.
No, thanks for having me over, Danny. I'm glad to be here and tell everybody about all the cool and exciting things we're doing. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I'm excited. Well, first thing I want to ask you is, tell us about Minteo.
So, deep down at the core, Minteo is a stablecoin issuer, which basically means we issue local currency stablecoins for Latin America. We initially started with the Colombian peso stablecoin, which is called COPM or COPM, as we like to call it, which is basically a representation of the Colombian peso on chain, and which lets you do pretty much anything with pesos on chain.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And let me ask you, how do you see the market in general going with Minteo? You guys are expanding. You guys are starting in Colombia and expanding to other countries?
So we initially launched in Colombia. Obviously, that's where we're from. It's probably the market we best understand. But our vision with Minteo has always sort of been to be a last mile API for Latam, where you can issue stable coins, send stable coins to third parties, swap in and out of local currencies. Obviously, our testing ground has been Colombia, and that's where we sort of started off. But we're this year, we are definitely set to expand to at least two or three other countries, hopefully even more, depending on a couple of regulatory things and compliance. But that's sort of always been our vision.
Okay, nice. And let me ask you, speaking of regulatory, how is the regulation? How do you see the landscape? Is it pretty simple?
So it's actually not very simple. It's very different on a per country basis. Mm-hmm. So each country sort of has very different regulation for stablecoins, and stablecoins is sort of tricky because if you go back to where it started, so initially we had Bitcoin,
right? So
some countries were should we have Bitcoin regulation?
Yeah.
And then came Ethereum, and then they were should we have blockchain regulation? And then a lot of people started issuing other kinds of tokens. And then they were should we have token regulation? And then it's kind of tricky because what is Bitcoin? If you're a regulator, how do you regulate Bitcoin? It looks very much like gold, probably better in a lot of senses. Mm-hmm. Is it sort of an equity? Is it a deposit? Is it something that gains value? What is it?
Yeah.
And then Ethereum, you can start doing a lot of other tokens, which start looking more like other kinds of products. And then we have stable coins, which stable coins are basically equivalents of fiat, but on chain, on which you can do operations. Should you put them in the same basket as all these other things, which is Bitcoin and Ethereum and whatever tokens, or Dogecoin, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then that's when it gets kind of tricky because if you're a regulator, then you basically have to re-regulate the entire financial system.
Yeah.
So when you look at at least Latin America and America, which is where we operate, you see a very different approach in a lot of different countries. Most countries are trying to get some kind of approach at regulating at least exchanges, Bitcoin, Ethereum, at least most of the what we could call as the Pareto of tokens and things. Mm-hmm. When it comes to stable coins, it's really new, so it's a bit different. And pretty much all the countries are working on this. Some are further ahead, probably Brazil. Mexico has some regulation from Bitcoin and Ethereum era. The rest of the countries are getting a drop down there. And for me, what's fascinating is what's happening in the US, where there's already a stablecoin bill, or there's a draft which has been submitted to Congress. I think that's something that has been amazingly done at speed by the Trump administration. And I really like it because it's just going to become something that's it's going to become very clear how stablecoins work and operate.
So you think that would be the framework moving forward?
I think it is like, and in general, like if you look at like Latin America, most countries tend to like mimic U.S. regulation. Like if the U.S. is like this thing is I don't know, whatever, like
And
X
asset, whatever,
or
yeah.
Y or Z. Like in Latin America, like we tend like there are like rare exceptions where we don't like say it's the same thing, but normally like we just follow suit, just because it sort of makes sense, like for everybody to like work together.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I agree. And it's very interesting because a lot of people don't understand how different it is in terms of use case and benefit blockchain and crypto is to LATAM versus like more developed countries, right? Because in the developed countries, crypto and blockchain is part of the tech sector, but in emerging markets, crypto and blockchain is part of the financial sector. Right? So it's almost a parallel market completely that's basically subsidizing some of the traffic and flows that are limited by the existing financial market. So I think blockchain and crypto in general play a huge impact in LATAM. And I think the stable coin, especially like with COPAM and everything that you guys are building, it has a big impact on cross-border payments, right? Like I would say like that's where you really see a lot of the movement, correct?
Yeah, so Javi, our CTO, he has this awesome analogy, which I love to think about, and he's like, we got cell phones in Latin America before landlines, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because like the landline, like it took so long to build out, like you had to like put telephone lines all over. Probably like most of Latam didn't get like landlines. Like most people never had like a telephone in their home, whereas like everybody in the US had like a telephone they could pick up and call somebody else. Like for most people, like phones here were mobile. Like they went from having no phone to like an iPhone or like an Android phone. Versus like people in the US went to like having this telephone where they could like ring somebody else and then going to a cell phone. I think it's very similar like in finance. Like the US has like such advanced like financial like products, whereas a US customer, like you can go like there's a bunch of like companies helping you do like wealth management. You can do derivatives, you can do like options, you can do a lot of these things. We never really got a lot of these things in that time, except for like probably the upper quartile of like people in terms of like net worth. Where I think like with blockchain, all these things are going to be like available for like the entire population, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And obviously like getting there to like cross border, like probably one of the first things you see is like cross border is like ridiculously expensive. Like that's one of the things that like are very expensive, very inaccessible for people like in developing countries and especially LATAM. Was like, I mean, if you live in New York, you want to send money to your mom who's like in London, like it's probably not that difficult. It's probably not that expensive. Like, but then if you live in Brazil, you want to send money to your relatives in Turkey, like it's going to cost you like 10%. It's going to take like a couple of weeks. It's a horrible experience. You send the money and then you lose track of it for a couple of days and then it shows up. It might show up for somebody else's account. Like you never know when. And then the experience with crypto is just amazing. I mean, you send one stable coin, you get another stable coin. It's very easy. It's very seamless. It's significantly less expensive. So I think a lot of the initial attraction with stable coins is going to be there. It's a huge use case for blockchain and crypto, obviously.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I see that. And let me ask you, do you feel you're going to have like, in the future, do you see a relatively near future where FX is all handled on chain?
I know if it's all going to be on chain, but I'm pretty sure it's all going to be on stablecoins. I would even bet like by 2030, like even 5-6 years from now, it's all going to be on stablecoins. Like I would be very surprised if anybody is like sending money internationally using Swift within like 5 to 10 years. Like it would be like, for me, it would be like I would be disappointed in our industry. Like we'd have to like really mess it up to like be in a situation like that. And just like if you think about it, like it's just very bad technology. I mean, compared to like Swift and all these like
absolutely, yeah,
things
it's not
are just like
transparent. It's slow. It's really the old method, right? So I definitely agree with you in terms of stablecoins, and especially once they get past critical mass, similar to like what USDT did, right? There was a lot of skepticism with USDT at the beginning, and then after a certain point, it just became basically the dollar of crypto.
Yeah.
Right. More than USDC or anybody else. I kind of feel that that's where I see Minteo, and that's why it was super exciting for us to partner with you guys. Was because what I realized that was going to be great about deploying you guys to the network is there's a lot of opportunities for us to work together, especially with stablecoins in LATAM, because the archaic banking structure and the protectionist culture of the financial sector has limited a lot of that growth and liquidity in the market, and it's made it very difficult for cross-border payments and just transactions in general. So I could see the market shifting towards a stable where you don't have the implicit like taxes on transfers, where you don't have the bank system going down one day, like it happens in LATAM quite frequently, where the systems are just down for the day. You just lose a digital banking for that day, and it's like normal. Whereas like with blockchain, it's always going. There's new innovation, there's new movement, and overall with stables, I agree with you, especially once the retail sector starts accepting them, right? Between that and your banking partners, I think you'll really be able to close the ecosystem, similar to like what's happening at a lower level with USDT, where they're accepting it as a form of payment, just straight up.
Yeah, for me, it's just like fax versus email. Like right now, we send money using faxes.
Yeah.
Stablecoins is email. Obviously, there's an adoption curve where like you need to get everybody like signed up for an email. So like we need everybody to get a wallet and to understand like sort of like a little bit about the basics. And like you need wallet providers. Like not everybody's gonna go and like get their own wallet. There's gonna be Gmail. There's gonna be like Hotmail. There's gonna be all these like equivalents. Sure, like KIX could be one of these things for like people. But then once like a significant mass of the people have like a wallet and like this technology, like it's completely like once you have email, like nobody wants to send a fax. It's just incredibly slow, incredibly useless, and it's just like a legacy form of communication. Like you might do it romantically, like I'm gonna fax you. I think I remember this fashion designer who used to send his friends faxes, and it was like that's very curious. Like who sends a fax in like 2020? I think it's gonna be the same thing. Like who's gonna send money over like Swift in 2030? And for me, I'm pretty sure even like banks are going to start adopting it. Like I'm pretty sure that's going to be they're going to realize at some point like this is even better technology, and that's also just it's just going to become like part of the financial system. Like,
yeah, no, I totally agree. And also, what do you think about stable coins and companies now that are building like a front end where they have the stable coins on the back end, but what the user sees is just pesos or dollars, like Litio is a good example of that. Do you see stables becoming basically like the back end of the operation, and what they're doing in the market is they're going to just keep the front end in dollars and pesos, whatever the fiat is, just for simplicity of adoption for retail users?
I think for a lot of technologies you see that. If you remember, like when like digital music came out, everybody's like, is that an MP3 or is that an MP4 or is that like a .ogg file? And you would have like your Winamp player, like, and you're gonna realize how old I am. So I used to have you Winamp, and then you like could see the structure of the file, and you would see like I don't know, like a Nirvana.mp3.
Yeah.
And right now you open Spotify and you have no idea, like obviously there's a format for all these encodings.
Yeah.
I mean, all the music has an encoding, but like people nowadays have no idea if it's like MP3 or if it's Ogg Vorbis or like whatever is going on.
They want
they just want a music, and you see the title. And I think it's pretty much the same, like even with email, like there's a lot of like, you just open like Outlook or Gmail or whatever, and you have no idea that it's like a thing that says like header comes here and then the subject.
Yeah.
And then like there's a whole like technical structure for how you send the message.
Yeah.
And how you do the post, etc. People have no idea. I mean, I think 80% of the users are never going to know what's happening underneath or under the hood. And then 20% have like a very good idea, but it just becomes like at some point like inconsequential.
Yeah, I think so too. I think especially in the market that we're in, and especially in emerging markets and in LATAM, the use case is the most important thing. And we've seen that with like companies like Litio, right? Where you're saving in dollars, right? But their back end is USDT, but the user doesn't even know they're using crypto. And it doesn't really matter, you know. I mean, part of me is thinking that that's what's going to happen with stables, is that stables is going to be like an ideal, like technological back end, and then the front end will be the traditional, just fiat representation, so, just for ease of use, because like, you know, it's easier to tell a user, hey, do you want to save in dollars? Perfect. Doesn't matter that it's USDT, you're saving in dollars. Okay. You know, you're saving in pesos. Okay. They don't need to know that it's Copema. They don't care, you know, and that's what we've been seeing in the market, is that a lot of users are, and also I think it's the right way to really market the sector, which is market the use, not the technology, because a lot of people will understand the use quickly, but they might never understand the technology, but it doesn't matter. You know, like if you're a user and you're saving in dollars, you don't care, you know, what the back end is on that.
So
You know?
I think from a consumer mindset, like sometimes like it is like the technology is important.
Yeah.
It's just like not important for most consumers. So say you're buying a car, like
It's important to the point at which the use is ideal.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times like people rely on somebody else to make the decisions. So like when you're buying a car, like, you know, Toyota, like that's a very solid brand. Like you have no idea why. But then there's like always like somebody's dad or like a cousin who's like the guy who knows cars, and he's like, this is a very solid car just because like the engine parts are made out of this better material, or the engine has like a better like design. I mean, somebody does at the end know like what is the technology that makes it better. But most people just like rely on the fact that it's like well known that that's very good technology.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to know if it's like USDT or USDC on the back. But just because like most of the users, like the influencers, like people who like recommend it, like know that what's on the back end is like good or reliable. Or in our case, like, you know, it's COPAM, you know, it has all these like safeguards, features, etc. And then people feel like, because you always feel like sort of like for like most purchasers or things, you always have a recommendation.
Yeah.
And you always feel like the trust of people who actually know these things.
Yeah.
So you put money into a bank account who you like, you know, you trust, or like your friends trust. You buy a car, like, you know, is a trusted brand. And I think at the end of the day, you don't need to know all the details of what's going on under the hood, but it does have to be reliable.
Okay.
But yeah, for 80% of consumers, like they're going to have no idea what's going on the back end. The same way that they currently don't, like nobody has any idea when you send money they're using Swift. But like money is sent through the Swift network and it's then settled on ACH. People don't have any idea, but like people who work within the financial system do understand like what's going on.
I agree with you. I think that the most adoption is going to come by focusing on the use. And I think that's how we're going to get mass adoption, because it's easier to sell to people, for example, you know, like, hey, save in dollars, and you're saving this while, and as far as I know, they're just saving in dollars, rather than get into the whole thing with crypto. And also because I think that, especially in LATAM, crypto has had different negative news because of different, you know, just the way the sector's developed. There's been, you know, negative aspects to it that I think people stay away from. And when you focus on the use case, right, people love the use case, and they know as much as they need to know, which is like, can I move my money, you know, through this application? Yes. Okay, cool. How they do it on the back end, you know, it doesn't matter. So no, I think that's the smart way to approach it, because it's much easier to adopt somebody to like a digital service than it is as soon as you start mentioning blockchain and crypto. You know, you either scare them away with crypto, or they're like, man, I don't even know what a blockchain is, right?
So it's kind of funny because like I don't even know, like I was at this fintech association meeting yesterday, and they call this vertical like blockchain and crypto, and we were thinking like there's a couple of companies in the stablecoin space, and we're like, are we blockchain and crypto? Because if you think about it, like stablecoins is sort of like a category in of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the technology is like based on blockchain and crypto. It is cryptographical technology to like know like the wallet and the address and how you're sending money. But like when people think of crypto, they think I'm like, is this a token where I'm going to put in like $1 and make $20? When you think of blockchain, is like how fast like is this transaction gonna settle? Like how do the blocks work? And when you think of stablecoins, just like what can I do with like financial use cases that I couldn't do before with like some other stuff? So it's very different. I mean, bland or vanilla. I don't know.
No, it's true. It's true. It's. I think people are more interested. I mean, it depends. Like if you're getting into the sector and you want to get into things that are exciting, you want to go after new coins and new blockchains and new projects. But I think if you're a consumer and you're a user that wants to like really optimize cross-border payments, wants to, be able to move money the fastest. I think stables is the most secure. It's the most the balance between the two. You have the speed and benefit of crypto and blockchain without the risk of of this thing being going up or down because you're tied to something. You're tied to local fiat. So I think it's a great way for people to enter, especially with the most basic benefit, which is like, hey, we can move money quickly, efficiently, right? The lowest cost possible and less friction.
Yep, I completely agree with you. And I think like the way we see ourselves is like as last mile API for LATAM or like a last mile solution for Latin America. We're just like easier to get in and out of the economy using stablecoins, just like cheaper, faster, especially when we like partner with chains like KeyChain. It's just like, it's much better than what we have. That's pretty much it. Like it's very simple at the end of the day.
Well, that's actually great that you mentioned that. I was going to ask you, what excited you the most about partnering with us and deploying on chain and working with us? What was the thing that you guys saw the most?
So I think obviously like KeyChain, since I heard about it, like it's a great idea. Obviously, like it makes sense to have a chain that solves like the Latin American users' needs. I think obviously they're like having like very low gas fees, super fast transactions, interoperability, like really helps solve the puzzle for cross-border payments. That's something you need in a chain for like getting it to take off. And obviously you guys also having key exchange, like you can tend to end users, you can find all these things. You sort of solve the entire part of the puzzle for like, whereas like we're the back end infrastructure and you guys are just the front end. I mean, we're like making the things under the engine, under the hood, and you guys are just like, you set up the shop and you're like getting anybody into the car like in 20 minutes.
Excellent. Well, yeah. No, the most exciting thing for me with Minteo is obviously I see a big opportunity not just in Colombia, but with your expansion throughout LATAM, because there's a big benefit with the structure that we're working on right now to really keep as much as we can on chain with the swaps. In this case, Copayment, but we'll be doing the other stables that you're going to do for the rest of the region. I think that's super important because it's also going to revolutionize traders, OTC traders, because with the stable coins, what you're able to do is you're actually able to operate 2 full cycles, not just what the first cycle up to 1 p.m. when they close the monetization desks. Yeah, with the stables, you're able to work post hour, so that gives basically doubles the workday for OTC traders, people doing arbitrage, right? Or just operations in general. People that need to liquidate past 1 p.m. Yeah, we with this structure that we're building, we can facilitate that. So I think it's super. That's the thing that I find the most interesting is how much it's going to be such a great service and a great product for the users that are the most OTC, which are the most crypto, which are the ones that are doing OTC. And then when you expand that over to more retail users that need to do cash outs from like stablecoin to local fiat, right? The fact that you can extend the working day up until 5 p.m. I mean, that just doubles the output. So I think that's going to be huge. Yeah,
that's going to be crazy. Like that. The way I love to like, I'm sorry, I've done a bunch of analogies on this this show, but like the way I like to think of it is like a bank FX desk, or as we call them in Spanish, mesa de dinero. A mesa de dinero is basically a liquidity pool which opens at 8 a.m. and closes at 1 p.m. and works Monday through Friday, whereas like a liquidity pool is like 24/7.
Exactly.
So, but at the end of the day, it's like it's the same thing. It's just like there's people like putting quotes for like buying, people putting quotes for selling, and then you settle the operations like that. Like what like a liquidity pool does on chain with an automatic market maker is like pretty much the same thing like traders do at like a bank FXS. It's like it's exactly the same kind of operations, except one is like 24/7 and the other one isn't.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's just like the same thing but better.
Absolutely.
And what you're saying, like working till 5 p.m. like it's kind of crazy. Like you pretty much all the money is done like all the more movement of money is done between like 8 and 1.
Yeah.
Like why is it like that in the first place? Because it's kind of funny because like we did that way just because like it's easier to schedule for like having people in an office, and they had to like they had to like take transport, get to the office, and then they have to like check out of the office, get some coffee. But I mean, we have machines, we have like AMMs. Like, why shouldn't this be just like 24/7? Like, why can you only move money within like a couple of hours within the day? Which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and also it's great because talk about really revolutionizing the economy, right? Because what we're basically discussing right now is you're taking a 8 to 1 workday and you're turning it to 8 to 5 p.m., 6 p.m. You know, so that changes everything. You know, you're basically doubling the output.
Yeah, I mean, it's way better market. It's way better for the economy. It's way better for like everything.
Absolutely,
much better.
No, I feel it's a great need that you guys are servicing. You know, and I definitely see tremendous value in order to basically start streamlining those operations, especially because like third party payments are always difficult, and especially throughout LATAM, there's a lot of friction when you're making payments and transfers. And I think with COPM in Colombia and then the other stables in the other countries, what you're going to do is you're going to be able to completely open up that market, and then FX will be a good amount on chain, and it'll be a full workday. Which, I mean, that alone is just going to double the amount of movement that you can do, and it really opens up margins and the market for people operating, right?
Yeah. So for us, and I come from payments. I mean, most of our team comes from payments. At least me and Javi, our CTO, we're like we spent 7 years in payments, so we're very aware of like how important like time and speed is.
Yeah.
It's like when we used to have a payments processor, and that's pretty much the entire business is like how fast and how cheap can you like settle payments. It's a margin business at the end of the day, and I think we're trying to build out the same infrastructure with stablecoins, just like how like fast can we get you like in and out of like local currency or like pains and payouts, and that's what we've been building for along all these use cases.
Excellent. No, I totally agree. And in general, what do you see? What's the thing that most excites you moving forward right now? I mean, what do you see this year, next year? What are the things that in short term?
So, I mean, obviously, like there's a bunch of things. all the partnerships we're doing, like the one with you guys, is going to be awesome. I think everybody is starting to like realize like what the value of these things are. Like we've been like building like for like a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of interest in the market. I think what's going on in the U.S. with the stablecoin bill, like sort of the way that the U.S. is approaching, like this is better financial technology. This is like at the end of the day, like this is what makes us a rich society. Like we need to like use these things. Like this is what like at the end of the day, like what we're building gives people better quality of life. I mean, they're going to be able to like send money like cheaper, more efficiently, save a little money here, like make a little more money there. It's technology. It's just financial technology at the end of the day. And for a lot of time, a lot of people didn't recognize that. I think it's been great to like see an acknowledgement of that, especially coming from like probably the biggest and the most important government in the world, which is the US. I don't know. Some people might object to me saying that, but like I think that's the reality, at least in the financial sector. And then I think we're getting an effect where people are seeing it in other geographies. Like people here are really realizing this is better technology. They're starting to use it. We're starting to get a lot of very cool use cases. We're starting to get a lot of users. We're starting to see a lot of interest, which should have been there from the outset. It's kind of crazy that it took so long for people to like realize it, but it's starting to happen, and it's very cool and it's very exciting. Like, and I think just the possibilities of all the things we're going to be seeing built throughout the next couple of years in Latam is going to be crazy. From like 2010 to like 2020, like fintech felt like this like thing that which is like bigger than like you could imagine. Like everything in Latin America was like fintech, like fintech. It was like,
Yeah.
and the best entrepreneur was like David Bellis from Nubank. All the top fintechs were like dLocal, Nubank. Like they were all these like fintech companies. Just because like there's such a huge like need in terms of like financial products in Latin America. And I think we're going to get like a very cool second wave, like starting 2024, 2025, of like blockchain, stablecoin products like coming into the market. It's going to be crazy. And it's very exciting to like be riding part of that wave.
Absolutely. No, I agree completely. I think I think that's been the evolution, right? The evolution, especially in LATAM, because the use case here is just so tremendous. The benefit, it really does impact the user and his quality of life, because a lot of people don't know that how slow and archaic the transfers can be here and costly. So when you start using, when you start getting into like COPM and everything like that, you start seeing like a whole new world, right? Because what really enriches a country is the faster you can make transactions. Because the faster you can make transactions, the faster you can do commerce. The more commerce, the more output, right? And that's really what I'm seeing a lot that I think is extremely exciting, especially because you guys are real pioneers in terms of stable coins in LATAM. Because there are some coins, but there's not. I haven't seen too many that are going regional with the stable coins like you guys are. And as far as the current users, who's using right now Copemi? Who's your ideal user? Tell us a little bit about that.
So we have a bunch of local users. I like to call them FinChains.
Okay.
So FinChains are basically like fintechs, but they're building on chain and with blockchains.
I like that. FinChain. I like that.
Yeah, it sounds a bit nerdy, but FinChain sounded a bit nerdy too when I come out. It's a funny term, but I like it because it's very descriptive. So we have a lot of FinChain companies, which are like these companies which like actually wanted to solve like financial problems, and they just realized that it was better to solve them like using blockchain and stablecoin technology. So like the one you mentioned a couple of times, DTO, and then we have a couple of exchanges like you guys, like a lot of companies there. A lot of them are doing cross-border. A lot of them are companies that like are offering USDC and USDT, just like dollar savings, which dollar savings are very hard to do like using the traditional financial rails, and they're very easy to do with blockchain. A lot of people are people who want to like get into like trading or buying like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and they just want to hold a position on chain in local currency for when the market is going down, or like we're also starting to get a lot of people who want to get like cards against those like on-chain positions. So a lot of these companies issuing cards backed on COPM. Yeah, so and then like obviously like a huge interest in like cross-border operations, just because like with like local stable coins, you can cross your order book faster if you're a company who's doing that. You can have an on-chain position and you can do on-chain swaps, which is like way faster, and then allows you to get the bigger market with better spreads. And then like what you were saying again, like do it twice a day. So we have a bunch of customers like over all these like segments.
Yeah, I'm very excited because I like that that the pioneers in the sector, we're all working together. We're all helping each other out. We're really building this thing out. I think it's an evolution between what's happened in the past and where the certain opportunities were wasted when companies starting off in the sector could have worked together to really create like a fertile ground for growth. And I feel like that's what we're doing here, and I think it's a lot of it has to do with the region itself, like we all realize, hey, we want to build this thing out correctly. Let's all work together to do so. And I agree. I mean, it's really exciting stuff coming up, and especially with the partnership, I'm very excited because I definitely see the cross-border need and FX need in general is huge. I think when you really can introduce a strong company and somebody that can be trustworthy like yourselves and the company and the team that you put together, I think that's huge because I think it's super important that the market starts seeing these very successful real projects and starts realizing how beneficial the sector can really be, how much it can really grow. And we get away from that era where every time you heard about blockchain, it was something negative. Now you're starting to hear a lot of the win cases, like a lot of the victories, a lot of people really building stuff that's interesting. So, no, I'm very excited, and overall, I'm excited about our partnership and being able to work with great people, and especially is expanding throughout LATAM because a lot of the things that I've seen differently is that when you're building in certain developed markets, you might be building a very niche benefit. I think the benefit that we have working with emerging markets and in LATAM specifically is that the things that we're building and what we're doing is creating real world value and real world impact. You're actually really creating benefit for the users. You're going to impact the middle class. You're going to be able to expand on that, and you're bringing real benefit to a market and liquidity to a market that needs it. So no, I'm excited. I'm excited to see technology really revolutionize these markets, especially with cross border and especially with movement.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be very cool too. In our case, I think we are going to start expanding. I mean, we're very close to expanding. We were probably the first company in Latin America. I'm pretty sure we're the first, but I'm not 100% certain to do one-to-one fiat-backed stablecoins. So there've been a couple of experiments of people launching stablecoins backed on other currencies, etc., or synthetics. But we were probably the first to do it one-to-one locally in local banks, etc., which is very cool. We pretty much started doing that 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. Okay. So we have a ton of experience there. And I think just right now, what we're looking for is how can we what we've solved for one market, how can we solve for another 2 or 3 markets and then actually solve for the region, which has very similar problems. Most of the countries end up having sort of the same exact dynamics.
And in other regions too, in other countries.
Yep.
Emerging markets seem to have all the same limitations. Difficult to operate with the banks, difficult for payments and transfers, extremely costly, right? And slow. Right?
And a lot of the times it has to do with the fact that the technologies previous financial rails were built on are the same in the rest of the world. Yeah. It's IBM selling the same infrastructure to the companies, banks all over the world, which is why micropayments don't work, why FX is expensive. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a technological problem. Whereas a lot of these solutions might work in the US or Europe just because there's a very high volume of money moving, and then consumers have a lot of more disposable income. So paying $2-3 for a transaction is not as terrible as paying $2-3 in Latin America for somebody who's making $200 a month.
Exactly.
Whereas if you're making $2,000 in the US or $3,000, hey, it's okay. I'll spend $2-3 on a transaction. It's not terrible. In Latam, it is terrible. So things never really develop just so it's too expensive. So we see the same problems worldwide in developing markets. And I think that's what we have to do, solve for these things regionally.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly what it is. And it's funny because people always ask me what's your strategy, because it seems like you're a regional play. And I always say our global strategy is our regional focus. Because the thing about LATAM specifically that I've noticed is, as we develop as we become the strong regional player as a blockchain in LATAM, what it's afforded us the opportunity to do is, by being strong in LATAM, we're able to be that strong regional player for international partners that want to enter. But what we've seen is all the companies and all the big projects that want to enter LATAM, they want to enter with a partnership. They don't want to go open the market themselves for obvious reasons, And I think that's a huge opportunity for companies like ourselves that really specialize in the region, really take a dominant position, and then we're able to export those results to our partners in other emerging markets. Right now, we're partnering with people in Pakistan, people in Africa, U.S. everywhere. They want to. They want to come into the market, but they need that strong regional player so they can really build that out. So I'm seeing that as well. I'm very excited for everything.
It's exciting. It's going to be a very interesting year and like a probably a very interesting decade.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Santiago, thank you so much. Very happy, very insightful. Very excited for what we got going on. Glad we could share with everybody a bit about what we're doing, and soon we'll be able to unveil some of the new products and structures that we're putting out. That's going to ease operations for everybody. So,
No, thanks for having me on, Danny. It's been awesome being here today. Hopefully, it's going to be interesting for the viewers.
absolutely. Appreciate it.
And also very excited for what we're launching soon.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Excellent.